The 2026 Summer Games Fest Showcase aired on Friday. Did it have some good stuff? Come on in, we'll talk about it. Hello, my gaming brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am Jonathan, your host here at QuickBird Gaming, and I appreciate you tuning in for this next episode of QuickBird News, where we talk about all the gaming news that's fit to cover. This episode is going to cover the week of the 1st through the 7th of June of this year, and obviously I think everyone knows the biggest news that happened this week was the Summer Game Fest and all the other smaller showcases that are going on and all the stuff that's been revealed to us. However, we do have some other stories to talk about. There are a few other things that have happened in the games industry this week outside of Summer Games Fest. We have Marathon and its ongoing issues. We have some fresh sales numbers from 007 First Light. We've got pretty much across the board. We got some hardware stuff to discuss from Valve and Nintendo and Sony regarding the PlayStation. So we've got other things to talk about. If you are interested, if you've already seen everything about Summer Games Fest and you just kind of want to get caught up on some other things, come to this timestamp right here and you can jump ahead to the next story. But if you haven't, sit back. We're going to roll through this real quick. I'm going to try not to get into too much into opinions, but we're just going to talk about the things that were revealed. And by the way, when I roll through these articles on Summer Games Fest and on the PlayStation State of Play, I will link them in the description bar down below. But having said all that, why don't we get into it right now? Okay, I'm just going to kind of scroll through these. I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds in any of them, but like I said, this article is linked in the description box, and so you can go watch any of these trailers from there. If you're interested, you can also watch my stream. I live stream the entire 2 hours of the Summer Games Fest. If you're interested in seeing it, you just want some background noise and listen to somebody babble about games here and there, go check it out. And I think I was just overwhelmed with the sheer number of things we got out of this. So my reactions on the spot were probably not super enthusiastic, but the more I've kind of sat on this and dwelled on it and thought about it, the more excited this has kind of all made me. So let's just run through real quick what we see in the Summer Games Fest, every big announcement. This is how they led off the show, announcing the remake of Resident Evil Code Veronica, now titled just Resident Evil Veronica. This is just going to be another win for Capcom. I think they've been on a hot streak for over a year now, just with banger after banger, and I think they are continuing that. This is the third showcase, if you count last year's Summer Game Fest and last year's Game Awards, where they've had a Resident Evil trailer that's gotten a lot of hype. And they're just rolling with this. So this is announced coming in 2027. They didn't put a date on it. Like last year when they did this, they put a date on Resident Evil 9. No date, so to be determined, but I know this is going to get a lot of scrutiny. Now, this was also kind of interesting. The team that made the animated game Cuphead announced that they are creating another Cuphead game with that similar hand-animated style. No further information on that, just announced that it's coming. And they're also doing what they called a tribute to an old school style of games and an 8-bit type of platformer that looked like it had a lot of the Cuphead characters in it. And that, I would say it looked roughly analogous to the Super NES era, just kind of the way the animation and the graphics looked. No information on that either, but so they are working on two new Cuphead games, one that's going to be in line with the previous game, and then this other spinoff. So that was kind of a surprise. Now, this was really cool. I know I've heard some people talking about the possibility of Alien Isolation 2. They came out and confirmed it from this developer Creative Assembly. And it looks like it's going to continue that sense of paranoia and stealth and being hunted by something unkillable, except this time they say they're turning it loose on a colony, not on a spaceship. So you're going to have the claustrophobia of the tight spaces of the colonial buildings, but then also the wide open spaces. Do you dare venture out into it? So this looks interesting. Now, Fumito Ueda is the developer behind such games as Shadow of the Colossus, and this looks like his next effort. It was called Project Robot. The title of the game is Gen Atlas. They just didn't show a whole lot of it other than some cinematics, so it's hard to say. No window given on it. Blood Message is a game that I think I saw last year, a first trailer for. It is a game set in ancient China. It looks like another fighting type of game. Not as many mystical elements, I don't think, as say like a Black Myth Wukong, although it's hard to tell. Again, we got a lot of cinematics, not a whole lot of gameplay, so TBD how this will turn out. Now, this got a lot of attention. This game, Stranger Than Heaven, it looks like it's got a very Yakuza-esque feel to it. And it does have the likeness of Tupac Shakur in it, which I think caught a lot of people off guard. The game also has Snoop Dogg in it. He came on stage at the Summer Games Fest to talk about the game a little bit and about Tupac's involvement. And like I said, watching a lot of other people's reactions to this moment, it caught a lot of people off guard. A lot of people were very surprised, including me. We got a new trailer for Black Flag Resynced, and that's coming out next month sometime as of the posting of this video. I don't remember if it's July 9th, July 19th. It's one of the two, but it's coming out next month. So we got another little look at it, and I know people are interested in that. Now, this was a surprise. Platinum Games, the folks that made Bayonetta and Nier Automata, are making a TMNT game called The Last Ronin. No further information other than the brief glimpse, so this was just an announcement. I'm sure more information will be forthcoming in the future. Bandai Namco, as the title says here, is making a new Gundam game, Rogue Orbit. Not a franchise I'm real familiar with or an IP. They say the mech game is due in 2027. So, we'll see how that goes. Now, That's No Moon is a studio made up of old Naughty Dog and CDPR devs, and they've got this game Crossfire, which looks like it's going to be a shooter, a third-person shooter, and I mean single player or maybe co-op at the most. A lot of narrative, very heavy on the cinematics, though the developers came on and talked about the adaptive gameplay a little bit. To be determined because there is no release window yet. I think this was a very early look. It looked gorgeous, but then you know what? A lot of Naughty Dog games look gorgeous, and then we know what happens from there. Now, I was glad to see this. We got a little bit of gameplay footage from Control Resonant. It's a game I'm really interested in, even though I wish they'd kept Jesse's story going. We're going to her brother now, but that's all right. This game is coming out, I want to say in September, and I'm real interested. Guild Wars 3 was announced. I don't know much about Guild Wars. When I played MMOs, it was not one I played. And I thought MMOs were kind of a dying thing because it seems like most people who still play them are locked into the one or two that they like. But the reception was good and it looked clean. So that was cool. We got a new trailer for Star Wars Galactic Racer. If you like racing games or Star Wars. Virtua Fighter Crossroads gets its first trailer. This is not a franchise Virtua Fighter that I know anything about. It kind of looked like an open world. It reminded me a lot of Sleeping Dogs, just in kind of the way it was set up. Looks like an open world fighting game set up somewhere in Asia. I don't know if it's China or in Hong Kong. I don't. It wasn't really clear to me, but it says it's planned for 2027. If you like that style, it's out there. Getting a DLC or an update to Grounded 2. Mafia Old Country is getting a expansion DLC. Now, this game, 1666 Amsterdam, looked kind of interesting. The protagonist, the player character, looks to be a witch in that city at that time. It's unclear whether she is a good guy, bad guy, which side she's on or what she's fighting, defending against, or attacking. But again, heavy on the cinematics. It looks interesting. It looks cool. But with so many of these games, I just want to see how it plays. Now, Bloober Team, who I've said before is kind of carving out themselves a niche in the horror genre, they're making Saw Genesis. They had the Saw puppet come on stage, and it sounded in the trailer, the voice of Saw sounded like Tobin Bell, the actor from the movies who played Jigsaw. If it wasn't him, they got his voice really close. And it kind of looks to me this might be a Dead by Daylight type of thing. But we just kind of announcement they didn't get a whole lot of information. Lords of the Fallen 2 got a new trailer. We got this game, Star Wars Zero Company, which kind of looks like a turn-based tactical game, not completely apart from something like XCOM. But it's coming out in August, so I'm sure we're going to see a lot more on it then. The Blood of Dawn Walker got a new trailer. Again, this game looks awesome. I'm really hoping it's going to be good because I'm really interested in it, and that's coming out in September, so we're going to find out soon enough. Innersloth announces a new game, Among Us story on guard. I don't really care about Among Us. 007 First Light is getting its first mission or DLC. Monster Hunter Wilds announces a DLC. Now, this looked amazing. And yet again, another, piece of Capcom's just what's becoming AAA dominance in the industry. And I don't mean necessarily financially, but they are just becoming one of the few AAA companies that's reliably delivering hit after hit. I really want to go back and double check on Monster Hunter Wilds to see if they've ever ironed out the optimization for the PC, because it was a game I really wanted to play and just wouldn't touch it until they fix some of that stuff. Got a Hot Wheels game coming in September, a racing game, and then Sonic Racing, some things announced. I'm not a racing guy. Attack on Titan 3. This was one of the fewest trailers in the whole thing that just, I kind of went, okay, I don't know anything about it. Clutch is another racing type game. You got Wiz Khalifa coming into Hitman. And Pal World is leaving early access. I thought it was Pokemon at first because I frankly can't tell the two apart because I haven't played Pal World enough. But it is coming out of early access next month, going to full release. This game has sold 25 million copies. I really hope they win their ongoing lawsuits against Nintendo because a lot of people love this game. Now, this was exciting to me. I really liked this. I liked the first Wolf Among Us game. It's one of the few reasons that I still try narrative adventures because I'm hoping to find something that replicates how much I liked that one. Part 2 or number 2, the sequel has been rumored for a long time. It was talked about and then seemed like it disappeared. Now it's confirmed. It is coming back and we got our first look at it planned for next year. Can't wait for that. Now this one, if you have to watch one trailer in the game, this one or Code Veronica would be the one I suggest watching. They confirmed or they announced the sequel to Stellar Blade. We knew they were working on it, but we got our first look here. Gameplay looks amazing. The fighting looks smooth. And we actually got to see a little bit of the fighting gameplay and so on. Looks great. There's no release window, but just wanted to keep an eye on. Street Fighter 6 announced Tifa Lockhart as one of the playable characters, which is fitting because then the game wrapped up with the announcement of Final Fantasy VII Part 3, the remake Part 3, titled Revelation. It's officially announced. Again, they don't have a release window for it yet, but we knew this was coming after the first two, and this will wrap up Square Enix's reimagining of Final Fantasy VII. And that was it. What did we not get? I was hoping for some information on Witcher 4. We did not see that. That was probably my biggest single disappointment that we didn't hear anything about that. We also didn't hear about some other games that I know are out there, like Marvel 1943, The Rise of Hydra, which looked interesting, although that's been shoved off to 2027, I know, and a couple other things. But all in all, as I reflect on it, there was a lot here. A lot of stuff was announced. I'm kind of surprised we didn't see anything on GTA 6. But maybe they assume that they don't need to, build up any more hype. A lot of stuff was announced, a lot to see here. So like I said, this is linked down below if you want to check out any of these trailers. They're all here, easy to find. Okay, while there have been a bunch of other showcases this week, I just wanted to touch on the Sony State of Play, which was probably the next biggest one, and this was from Tuesday, June 2nd. So we're just going to run through these. This isn't as long as the last one. They opened with about 7 minutes of play from Marvel's Wolverine, which is supposed to be released on September 15th. It looked fine. You could definitely tell the Insomniac influence was there, looking at games like Spider-Man. They just had a similar feel to how it was handling. It's visceral. It's bloody. The combat looks pretty good. I'm unsure about the character model for Wolverine and for Jean Grey, who appears in this. I'm not sure they were quite right, but overall, like I said, I think people who like that style of fighting, kind of action adventure game are really going to like this. I won't get to play it. It's going to stay on PlayStation 5, and I've outlined my reasons why I'm not getting a PlayStation, and that's never an offense to my PlayStation brothers and sisters out there. If it's working for you, great. I'm just too deeply invested in the PC ecosystem right now to change, and quite honestly, can't really afford to put $1,000 after tax towards a PS5 Pro for 1 or 2 games a year. They announced Marvel Tokon, a fighting game, which okay, fighting games. Now, Rayman is a franchise I've never played. A lot of people seem to really be excited about this. So, okay, they're remastering this. And Banco the Chef is a spinoff from the game Dave the Diver, a game I have also never played and never will because of my phobia of being attacked by creatures in the water. That's just not something I can bring myself to play. The same reason you will never ever see me playing Subnautica. Okay, Kamuri the Unseen Hunt. This looked like a co-op type of game to fight monsters. Now they did talk about Tomb Raider: Legacy of Atlantis, which is obviously not a PS exclusive. This is the one that's reimagining the original Tomb Raider adventure and is being delayed until next year. We got nothing either in this showcase or in the Summer Games Fest on Tomb Raider Catalyst. It was one of the other games I was hoping to see something on. But if this has been pushed back, it's probably a cascading effect that's pushed that one back as well. Lost Wild looks like a Jurassic Park inspired survival horror. It might be okay. It's hard to say because, again, we didn't get a lot of gameplay. Phantom Blade Zero is a game I'm also interested in. It looks really good. This one will come to PC, and just the fighting in it looks very typical of like with Wukong or Wu Chang Fallen Feathers type of style. It looks like it'll be interesting. Dune Awakening is a game I actually know nothing about. It's already out on PC. I've never played it, but it's coming to PlayStation. Dynasty Warriors 3 is getting remastered. No Rest for the Wicked is already on PC. It's going over to PlayStation. Onimusha, this is another one coming from Capcom that's coming out in September, and so they're they're just killing it. Silent Hill Townfall. This is really kind of interesting to me because Silent Hill was, I don't want to say it was a dead franchise, but it kind of stagnated for years before the Silent Hill 2 remake. And then they had that, and then they had Silent Hill F, and now Silent Hill Townfall is coming out. It looks to be, just if you're a Silent Hill fan, I know there were a lot of complaints about the combat heavy nature of Silent Hill F. This looks to be much more stealth and evasion. Just it's the feeling I'm getting watching the trailer. Ace Combat is a franchise I don't know a lot about. I'd love to get into some more simulation type games, get a joystick and everything. I'm just, strapped for time. But it looked interesting. Stuntman looks like another driving game. Ill. Now this is a game that looks really, really good to me. It looks like a it's got a survival horror, definitely got the Resident Evil vibe going to it. So and that's coming out next year. Obviously, Control Resonant we talked about. Marathon Season 2, I'm going to talk about a little bit. I'm going to talk about after the showcases here. RuneScape Dragon Wild's coming to PlayStation. A couple of other games. Until Dawn 2 has been announced, a sequel to the original. Not something necessarily I'm going to be interested in. And then the bookends, they started with Wolverine as an exclusive, and they're finishing with the new God of War entry called God of War Lafay, however you say it, where Kratos' deceased wife is going to be adventuring through the underworld. And aside from this game being exclusive to PS5, which or PlayStation, meaning I won't be able to play it, it doesn't look like the kind of game that was going to interest me because I'm just going to be honest. And this, before people start screaming about having playing as a woman, you get off of it. We know better. That is such a misdirection because people who will happily play as Lara Croft or Bayonetta or Jesse and Control Resonant or Stellar Blade or Wu Chang or Final Fantasy games with women in it. Nobody cares about that. That is not the problem. What bothers me about this is looking at it is I don't know if I could take another game full of quippy, ironic, break the tension with this forced humor garbage. I just don't think I can take another one. I'm really coming to the conclusion that the MCU, as much as it's started off great, has done incalculable damage to the entertainment industry across the board because everybody's trying to replicate, undercutting every serious moment with this kind of snarky, we got to get it, make the scene funny or it's a lost moment humor. And just looking at the trailer, I was already seeing a ton of that. It just did not feel like my kind of game. So Anyway, it's going to be available on PlayStation. I'm sure it's going to sell well. But that was at the PlayStation. That was a State of Play, which was the other big showcase from this week. And there have been a ton of other showcases. If you're interested, I would suggest going out to the actual the website or the YouTube channel for the Summer Games Fest and looking up some of these other shows that have been run. A lot of lesser known games have also been announced and covered. So, you know what? We're eating good as gamers right now. We got a lot of stuff coming. And if even 1 out of 3 of the games I talked about tonight, or 1 out of 4 of them pans out, we got a lot of stuff coming in the next year that's going to be really good entertainment. So, future's looking pretty bright. Okay, we need to talk about some stuff other than the Games Fest and the showcases. So now we're going to move on, and we're going to talk, because it's a day that ends in Y, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite whipping boy lately, and that is Marathon. And this PC Games In article, which is from Wednesday the 3rd of June, Marathon dropped its massive Season 2 update, and nobody was able to play it. They said it was a huge opportunity to get players in the game, but errors and server issues ruined the shooter's comeback. And maybe not that maybe not necessarily ruined it, but it certainly didn't help things. Okay, it was a huge moment for the game with the massive patch and an open week to invite new players. It felt like a prime opportunity. Unfortunately, the best laid plans go awry. Okay, the June 2 talks about the June 2 patch and what they were doing. Unfortunately, almost everyone, including the author of the article who tried the launch, was met with 1 of 3 errors. These stopped the game from booting up and eventually became such a big issue. Bungie had to take down Marathon servers in their entirety attempted to push this patch through. So, in short, Bungie decided to have this free-to-play week for Marathon from the 2nd of June to the 9th of June. So it's running from Tuesday to Tuesday, basically. And that's since been extended because of these issues to the 11th of June, and they've given some stuff away to people to try and make up for it. But the upshot of it was they were trying to get people into the game, and unless it's a planned thing from the beginning, going free to play 3 months after you launch is never, even temporarily, is never a good look. And you would expect to see that they maybe, got 100,000 people into the game, new game, into the game at once. Well, we flip over to the Marathon, on Steam database, and I'm going to refresh it just so you can show you on Saturday night on the 6th. 30,000 players in game, for the weekend. They got, 37, they got 40, 37, 33, and onto the weekend, their numbers are dropping. And this is free to play right now. And the most they can muster on a Saturday is, 30,000 concurrent players. I don't like being a doomsayer, but this game is just in no way is it going in the right direction financially. I don't see any good future for Marathon, unfortunately. I think it's a shame because I know some people do enjoy it, and it's a shame because I think that this is inevitably going to lead to more layoffs at Bungie, and I don't know what the shelf life of Marathon is going to be, but yeah, we just had all this good news about games that are up and coming and studios that are putting out great products. And then I know Bungie, the people that work there were probably excited to do this, to put out Marathon, and it's just not working. And people will say, well, I love it, it's great, and that's fine. I'm glad you do. It's not working on the scale they need to keep it going. And there's just no way around that, unfortunately. Next, I want to talk about 007 First Light, and it seems to have had a little bit of a mixed week here, and with some information, I think, still to be determined. We're going to start with this IGN article, and this is from Saturday, June 6th. It says 007 First Light developer IO Interactive says it's now sold 3 million copies, well above our forecast at this point. Okay, they had announced 2.7 sales in a week, but in an interview with IGN in Los Angeles yesterday, that would have been Friday, and I think this happened right after the Games Fest showcase, CEO Hakan Abrak, I hope I said that right, said the adventure is now up to 3 million. And let's see, this comes without the help of Nintendo Switch 2, which is expected to come later this summer. And Abrak told us, he says, where was the thing I was looking for here? The big question now is whether 007 First Light will turn a profit for IOI. Recent reports from the Danish press claim the game cost 1.3 billion Danish kroner, approximately 200 million, to develop over the course of 7 years. And Abrak cast doubt on the accuracy of that $200 million figure as a straightforward budget cost, insisting it includes a number of costs associated with the development and release of the game. And he talks a little bit about why that doesn't, that's not the case. The game itself wasn't this, blah, 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 blah. But the question comes up to me, the question that comes or forms in my mind is that IO Interactive has about 500 employees worldwide. They haven't released a game since Hitman 3 in 2021. The only other, publishing or interaction they've done was publishing that game Mind's Eye from Build a Rocket Boy last year, which is an absolute disaster. Now, I don't know that they took a bath on that necessarily. Obviously, Build a Rocket Boy did, but I'm sure IOI was that it didn't make them any money either. So James Bond has been in development for 7 years, and with 500 employees for 7 years, that's going to be a pretty lengthy development train. Now, yes, obviously, I know all of them weren't working on First Light, and they have other things because they're still selling Hitman games. But I think he's pretty quick to dismiss that 200 million. And also, he was relatively quick to dismiss this Games Radar article. 007 First Light Studio may be getting pushed out by Amazon on future Bond games. Following the success of First Light, Amazon's GM of Gaming confirms the company is going to be taking over publishing duties on future games. Okay, and then they talk about further in this article, it talks about IO Interactive and some of the things that happened. Okay, back in February 2025, Amazon had announced it had acquired the rights to James Bond. The acquisition came after a deal had been forged with IO Interactive to develop and publish a game, which became First Light. Let's see, in a recent interview with Polygon, Jeff Gaddis, who serves as the GM of gaming at Amazon, confirmed that when the company acquired the rights to the James Bond franchise, it didn't include First Light as that deal happened prior. However, Gaddis did say future games and any potential First Light sequels will be handled by MGM and theoretically Amazon Game Studios. What that means is up to interpretation, but it does appear IO Interactive is getting pushed to the side, or at the very least will be losing the level of control it enjoys now. Now, when I come back to this IGN article that talks about this, the CEO was very quick to say, oh, we have a rosy relationship and the future's bright and we'll be issuing a joint statement and blah, blah, blah. Till it's in print, I still remain skeptical. Until the investor call comes out and they release solid financial figures, I remain skeptical. Not denying that 007 has been a hit. I think it has been. It sold 3 million copies in just a couple weeks. I haven't played it. I've seen some reviews that didn't like it, but by and large, most people I've seen playing it seem to enjoy it. The big criticism seems to be it's a lot of cinematics. That's what I've heard from people. Again, I feel like I'm whipping a dead horse here when I talk this way. A lot, but in general, I think the enjoyment from players was high. So I wouldn't call this a failure. But again, was it enough of a success to warrant its existence at IO Interactive? I think in the long run it will be. As I pointed out in the showcase, they're having a new mission, a DLC coming out. They've got more games planned. But a lot of that you put an asterisk on because it really depends on what Amazon's going to do. And before anybody says, well, Amazon's certainly just going to let them do what they want because they're making money, I never underestimate the capacity of the big company to come in and screw up what's going well, and neither should you. This video is getting really long, so I'm going to hit my remaining stories pretty quickly. And I've got a little bit of news on all of our favorite platforms. I'm going to use Valve as a substitute and stand in for PC. And I'm going to start with this GameSpot article that came out on Friday, June 5th. After months of silence, Valve finally narrows down the Steam machine's release date. In an update on Valve's Steamwork development forums, the company committed to a summer release window for both devices, meaning the Steam frame and the Steam machine. And they said Valve has yet to share any pricing details for either device. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this and a lot of speculation about how this is going to be priced. I've seen people speculating it could be as high as $1,500 for the top-of-the-line Steam machine, given the state of RAM and just component prices in general, that it's going to push the price of this up. and a lot of folks seem to think that's going to make it non-competitive, with consoles and even midline PCs. On the surface, I would agree with that. On the other hand, I just reported last week that Valve jacked the price of the two versions of the Steam Deck, the 512 gigabyte and the 1 terabyte OLED versions, up about 50% and immediately sold out again. So I wonder if brand loyalty and curiosity are going to be a good counterbalance to the fact that it may not be competitive price wise. But if they're going to stick to this summer release window, we will know either way relatively soon. Next, I want to mention this gamesindustry.biz article from Friday, June 5th, just because I think that this is, how do I put this? I think that this is a much bigger mountain to climb than is being made here. Asher Sharma commits to, quote, resetting Xbox, prioritizing exclusivity, addressing AI in new strategy. Xbox CEO outlines plans to become the number one gaming and entertainment company amid rising component costs and platform competition. And this apparently happened at a Bloomberg Tech event on Thursday. She discussed her first 100 days following Phil Spencer's retirement in February. Xbox reduced the price of Game Pass, which Sharma had said already had a positive effect. Discontinued gaming co-pilot. They changed some leadership. However, Microsoft's Q3 results showed a 33% year-over-year decline in hardware sales, which they attributed to rising cost of components and everything else. And then she talks about AI down here. It talks about going to become exclusive content. To succeed as a platform, we must offer exclusive content and services. We're looking at that very closely. And I just reiterate what I said a minute ago. Xbox is far behind PlayStation in this console race. People have said for years the console race is dead. And she is really looking at trying to resurrect a corpse here. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. Nothing is impossible. But I find it very unlikely. The one thing they could do if Xbox really, really, really wanted to resurrect itself, there's one thing they could do that would work 100% of the time. Make good games and put them on Xbox that you can't get on PlayStation. The end. If they do that, they will find their audience. And the sad thing is that Xbox and Microsoft have an enormous library of games under them. All of the Bethesda games, the Fallouts and the Elder Scrolls, they have the Activision games, everything under Blizzard. They have Gears, they have Forza, they have Fable, they have all these games. But do they have the wherewithal to make the games good? The first test of that we're going to find out is when Fable comes out. This will be one of the first games released under her watch that she would have had substantial influence on the development of. Forza, that was basically done before she ever took over. She could have substantial influence on Fable. Will it be a game for gamers? I want to bring up this Insider Gaming article from Monday, June 1st. Sony is reminding everyone that PlayStation age verification is coming soon. We knew this wasn't going to go away. They were going to continue to want to do this, that they are going to basically make you verify your age. You're going to be locked out of certain features. Basically, like messages, voice chat, will require a one-time age verification to let you continue. And it says that, they go through the whole thing. A selfie, a form of ID, a passport, driver license confirming your mobile number. This is up to everybody's individual comfort level, whether or not they want to do this. I would do it going into this knowing for a fact that Sony has a rancid history of securing personal information. PlayStation Network has been hacked and information leaked I don't know how many times. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to associate, if you're going to put your phone number with your account, just assume it's going to get leaked, because and they say, well, we won't hold on to this information. We've heard that before too. So just be aware this never went away, and this seems to be the new it's trying to become the new norm in gaming in general, which is sad, but here we are. Okay, we talked about Valve or PC, and we talked about Xbox and PlayStation, so now we might as well hit Nintendo. And I want to go to this Insider Gaming article from Thursday, June 4th. Nintendo announces new Switch 2 hardware with replaceable batteries. Now, the upshot of this article is that the batteries in the Switch 2 in the original models are essentially glued in. They're very difficult to replace, and it can almost, if they die or if there's a malfunction, it can almost wreck the whole console. But with the regulations in place now, coming out of the European Union regarding battery recyclability and disposal and environmental impact and so on, they're going to make it easier. Nintendo's going to have to comply to make it easier to replace batteries when they do die. And I think this is a good thing. This is one case of government overlooking or overwatching the consumer actually working, and it's going to make this easier to be done. So Nintendo will have to comply with this. Okay, they've announced new hardware to align with fresh legislation aiming at reducing what I just talked about. Current products will include, the aim of the legislation is to reduce e-waste, extend the life of battery-powered products. As a result, the new model Switch 2 will ensure the heat guns or battery solvents are not required to free the battery, and no custom screws are used to hold the case together. So essentially, they're making it easier to repair and replace, consumer friendly, and it's always a good thing. This Eurogamer article was published on Monday, the 1st of June, and it's got an interesting headline. Baldur's Gate 2 remake reportedly in the works at Wizards of the Coast. The first game likely getting the same treatment too. And it says PC Gamer first broke the news. According to its sources, ex-BioWare veteran and BG2 co-lead designer Kevin Martins is part of the project after contributing to the Wizard of the Coast and Archetypes Entertainment Exodus. Okay. According to a source familiar with the projects, Martins is already working on the Baldur's Gate 2 remake. If both games are making a comeback, which makes a lot more sense than the second game, given that it's a direct continuation of BG1, this explains the remakes are being developed concurrently. While the report is only confident about the existence of BG2's remake, it states a full rebuild of both titles could be happening. So a little bit of speculation there, but it does seem that there's a little bit of fire where there's smoke, and we might be seeing a remake of BG2, maybe both that and Baldur's Gate 1, which I think would be really cool considering how successful Baldur's Gate 3 was and how beloved it has been. A good remake, and I'm stressing a good remake, could really add fuel to the fire and push for another game in that franchise. And let's just face it, I think good turn-based RPGs are not a dime a dozen. So seeing this franchise get a little fresh life into it, because it's been a few years now since BG3 was released, getting a little fresh breath would be awesome for the RPG scene. All right, I'm gonna call this here. This video is way long already, and I should probably wrap it up. So, as always, if you enjoyed this content, please consider dropping a like on the video. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about any of the stories. If you think I missed a major story this week, if you want to talk about the Summer Games Fest presentation or the State of Play, let me know that too. I read all comments, try to answer as many as possible. And if you are enjoying this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Ring your bell for notifications so you know the next time a news update is uploaded. I appreciate all that engagement, and thank you in advance. And go check out my stream from the Summer Games Fest if you like. I also clipped my reaction to the Code Veronica trailer as it was happening live because, like I said, it had a pretty good jump scare. And what can I say? I jumped. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in. I'll be back next week with more Quick Bird news. Until then, again, I thank you. You all go out there, live your best lives, and you all stay gaming.